So tonight we are looking at experience and the perspectives of egg donors. This is actually a re-recording because the original live version didn't save on Instagram Live, but I know many of you watched and many of you were waiting for it. So we've taken the time to re-record, and I'm delighted to have Jackie back with me, who's going to be sharing her experiences, and also Sarah, who works for Altrui, who's going to answer any questions around the sort of the process and anything to do with that. So thank you so much again for sharing kind of your time and your story. And I always say this, but I always get so emotional when I speak to egg donors because I know firsthand just what a difference it can make. It is simply life-changing. So yes, just firstly, thank you so much for what you've done. And I'm going to come to you first, Jackie, with just a general question around, just talk to me about why you chose to donate and how it came about for you.
Sure. So for me, it was actually a New Year's resolution. I was thinking about things that I could do that I felt were purely altruistic. And at the time, I didn't think that I wanted any children of my own. And I did a bit of research and I was looking into all different types of donation. And for me, being a young and being female, it kind of was obvious that the most valuable thing that I could give was my eggs. So that kind of got me into researching it. And then I stumbled upon Altrui then and kind of got all the help and support I needed at the start of my journey for that.
That's amazing. And sort of when you went into your donation, what thoughts had you given to kind of the end result, really? So that the resulting child, what were your feelings around that?
So I mean, it took a little while. From the start to the end of the process, it was a good 3 years to kind of get my head around it. All I knew is that I wanted to help the family. So all of my thoughts kind of went into this couple that I was helping, and throughout the whole process, it was kind of it started off almost quite clinical. You go through all of these tests and they kind of give you, your hormone level's too low, and then you try different things, and so it wasn't until the end of the process where it all kind of became very emotional for me. And yeah, it was kind of looking forward and thinking, there will be this family that will be made a family because of me. I think that was kind of what got me through it, really.
And you said it was a 3-year process for you. What kind of give me an idea of what the process was across that time frame?
Sure. So the big thing, the kind of first emotional roller coaster, shall I say, was getting my family on board and my partner at the time. So kind of talking to them that I was thinking about doing this. And obviously you've got my parents who are kind of from a different generation who they couldn't really understand why I was doing it or why I wanted to do it. So it was kind of explaining it to them. And Altrui were great in, they offered to ring my mother and kind of talk through any concerns that she had. So that was kind of the first big journey for me. And then it was the medical aspect of it. So arriving, doing some tests, discovered that my hormone levels were too low because of the type of contraception that I was on at the time. So then having to change my form of contraception, waiting a while again, and then finally kind of being able to do it. So it was definitely a journey, and it was, it was a project to kind of take on, but absolutely 100% worth it in the end.
And that's amazing, just to kind of think about the investment of not only the emotions you've put into it, but the time as well. And sort of to say that you were having to adjust certain things in your life just to make it happen. That's amazing, because it's not just a quick thing, is it? It's something that takes up quite a lot of time. And just talk me through kind of what impact that had on your sort of daily life when you were going through the actual treatment.
I was very lucky that I was working for an employer who was 100% behind me with what I wanted to do, because I don't live near to a clinic. So it meant a lot of travel. It meant that at least one day a week I was out of the office for tests and for checkups. So it was definitely an investment, but it was for in perspective a very short amount of time compared to what I imagine the recipient couple would have gone through. So it was given a lot of support, I think, from having someone like Altri to kind of ring up and say, can I do this? Are they flexible with that? I think having that support network there was massively useful, and they helped me. It didn't feel like such a big thing that I was doing at the time.
Yeah, and did you have over that time frame? Did you have any wobbles or reservations at any point? Because I'm sure it's perfectly natural for you to kind of have different feelings along the way.
For me, the biggest wobble came probably too late. It was the night before the donation, and that was a really hard night for me. And I remember I was sat there and I just thought, I wish that I could speak to the recipient couple and just get a few words about kind of what was going through their minds, because I was in a lot of pain. I was like emotional and physical pain of kind of going through the process. So I actually went online and I found an egg donation forum, which I posted on anonymously. And I just kind of said, if you could say one thing to your donor, what would it be? Just because I felt like I needed that kind of emotional support. And I think that definitely kind of reading through those replies, it restored kind of my faith in humanity, that there was all of these people out there who had so much love and, so much admiration for people that they didn't even know, people that they were never going to meet. It was, that was kind of life-changing for me. And my heart definitely grew a bigger size that day. It was, really impactful.
Yeah, and that's amazing, because it's not often thought about in terms of the donor, actually, like the kind of the picturing you the night before you're going to do something that kind of, I've heard other donors say that there is quite a lot of pressure around it, because you've been matched with a couple and you want to do whatever you can to help them, but also it's a big thing for you, and not being able to communicate that kind of to have that conversation really between you. I can imagine that being really difficult, because I think, putting myself in the recipient's shoes as well, although I had some very complex feelings at the time, I was still sort of grieving and kind of working out. Before you've had your child, the process does seem very abstract. It's kind of, there's so much unknown. But I was so grateful that someone was willing to go through something and take so much time and so much emotion as well. So yeah, I'm pleased that you were able to find people to kind of demonstrate the gratitude that us as recipients do have. And talk me through, so we've just talked about the egg collection. What do you get to know afterwards? So do you get to know the number of eggs? Do you get to know kind of at what point the recipient has a transfer, or any pregnancies? Talk me through that.
So for me, it was, we were told how many eggs were collected immediately after it happened. I remember coming out, and I don't know if it was because of the anesthesia, but I was, happy crying because of the euphoria that I felt after donating. And they said, look, we did really well. We got a good collection of eggs. And then I was kind of kept up to date in a kind of timely manner, really, in terms of when there was any progress. So unfortunately, they tried once, it didn't work, but on the second one, it went through, and a child has kind of resulted out of it, which is the end goal, really, kind of what I wanted from the start. But yeah, I've definitely kind of kept up to date with everything.
And how did that feel? So hearing there was a pregnancy, then hearing that there was a child born.
It was incredible. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know how I would feel. But I remember it so vividly. I had the phone call from Altri, and just as she was saying to me, the child's been born, it started snowing. So I refer to baby as snowflake now.
Yes, that's beautiful. This question came up a lot when I asked my followers on Instagram. What are your feelings towards that child now? And obviously, with it being in the UK, that child will be able to find out more information when they're older and potentially contact you. How do you feel about that?
So I've always kind of felt a disconnect. I don't feel like a mother, obviously, especially now that I am a mother myself. I'm able to kind of separate it to, you know, I was able to donate eggs in the same way that you would, you know, donate blood or donate a kidney or whatever. So I'm kind of so happy for the couple, and if it ever did kind of get to the point where they wanted to get in contact, then I would be open to that, absolutely. But I'm aware that, you know, at that point we would have lived very different lives. You know, they had their own family unit at that point, just like we are our own family unit. So it's kind of, I guess, having that respect for each other's families.
Yeah. And in terms of, I know you mentioned about talking to your family was quite a big obstacle to overcome when you were making the decision to donate. How do your family feel about it now? Obviously, they will be aware, and are you talking to your child about the fact that potentially they have a half genetic sibling out there?
Yeah, and it's something that I kind of spoke to my other half about, and he's kind of encouraged me to be very honest at a young age that, you know, mummy helped another family have a baby, and kind of being open about it, you know, as she kind of grows up. So I think we're kind of managing that. She's kind of obviously too young now to kind of explain it, but we definitely will. And then in terms of my family, so my mother was the one who had the biggest reservations about it, because in her, you know, Welsh grandmother mind, she didn't want there to be a child out there that she wasn't looking after. So we had to work through that, and now she is my absolute biggest fan. She buys me like a little like snowflake decoration every Christmas just to remind me. So she's completely over the moon about it, and she thinks that what I did was really incredible. So it's kind of brought us closer, if anything.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I love your honesty about how your mum kind of originally viewed it, and I know it is a kind of a big concept to get your head around, and I think quite often I don't think I would have thought about the donor's family also having to adapt to it, as my own family had to as well. So thank you so much. I'm just going to come to Sarah now and just ask a little bit about the actual process. So what contact do the donors get? How does it all work, sort of from start to finish, from making contact with you guys and actually donating?
Well, from the beginning, we have donors who contact us just looking for information to begin with, because there is an awful lot out there online, but they're wanting perhaps to ask questions and find out a little bit more about how it would happen in their own particular circumstances. So they contact us and register a few details so that we can be sure that they're within the parameters that clinic will accept in donors. And if everything's good, then we can arrange to have a couple of telephone calls, which take about, you know, possibly around an hour each, so that donors have got a really good opportunity to ask questions, not only for themselves, but questions that their partners or family are also asking, to be able to feed back and give some reassurance to them, which I totally understand, really, because apart from anything else, you know, there is the concept of donation that is quite alien to other generations, but there's also the fact that this is my daughter. She's come across this thing on a social media platform probably, and then she's had a couple of phone calls with someone, and the next news, she's in clinic donating eggs, having a procedure. Hang on a minute, are you safe? Is this going to impact on you? Have you looked into it properly? So I always try, and because some donors get a little bit frustrated by the fact they feel this is holding them back, and we're always encouraging at Altrui that it's important to have the support, and to really, if your family mean a lot to you and you're in a relationship, probably not to go against that, to listen to these concerns and see if you can persuade them if it's something that you feel strongly about, or maybe you just need to back away from it, because the last thing that we would want anything to come from this would be to be damaging to a donor's relationship with her family because of doing something and for them to be able to talk openly and freely in the family about what they've done afterwards is much better than having to walk on eggshells and hide things away. they should be able to be proud of what they've done. And if that's not all right with everybody, then it's one of those things they've got to kind of accept. But yeah, it is important to get it right with family. And so we go through all of that on a first phone call. We'll also establish whether there's anything in somebody's family medical history that could be an issue. You know, that's kind of really important. The background that you can do for that is to, you know, research into the family and find out as much as you can. That's really helpful, so that when we come to the table to talk about it, we can get as much accomplished in that first call. And then we ask if we can share a bit of information, which is going to be a blood test, as you mentioned before, Jackie, about the finding out about your fertility level, whether that's going to be appropriate for being a donor. And if it isn't, then how do we go about rechecking that if it's possible? And if it's not, then, you know, it's one of those things, unfortunately. It's a medical parameter that we've got to abide by. And the other thing that we ask for is a little profile that people have to write about themselves, which they absolutely love writing, and giving us some photographs. So this is really important for us at Altrui, because it's really key for us when we're looking to match people together. We need to get as much information as we can about each party, so that we can look for a really good holistic match, not just physically, but like the kind of things you like to do, whether there is a musical bent with you, or you're talented in sport, or, you know, some things like that are quite important to recipients who are trying to engage as much as they can with the person who they're taking this huge leap of faith on. It's very, both sides of this are so interesting. And then when the if you get through that part and you're happy to complete the process with the profile and the blood test, then we have another call, which is a long call to explain how the process will unfold for you individually, taking into consideration what support you've got, whether you're working, whether your employer is going to be supportive to this as well, where you live in the country, how you feel about travel, what kind of travel that would be, and what that impact is going to be on your work life and your family life, and just to really establish how this could unfold as conveniently as possible. But it has to be understood that it's rare that we can accommodate people on their doorstep, and like you, Jackie, had some quite a bit of travel to entertain. For some people that's quite daunting if you've never been on a train alone or been to a clinic before. Things like this are very new to a lot of people. It takes a bit of thought sometimes before you can commit to it. But for other people who have a phobia about things like needles or traveling, not only being a donor, but actually going through the process is so empowering. It makes them achieve things that are outside their comfort zone, and makes them feel quite bold and, you know, proud of themselves for other reasons as well. So we talk about the whole thing and establish if it's well within their comfort zone. And if it is, and they're happy to continue, then we will set about looking for somebody to match them with. Once that person is found, then we contact them again to make sure that it's still convenient and still something they want to do, or nothing's popped up in the meantime with family medical history issues. And then if all's good to go, then we'll make the referral into clinic. And then the interface really between donor and treatment is the advisors and the nursing team at that particular clinic. But we here at Altrui are always in the background to offer any support we can. If donors are struggling with anything, certainly with compensation of expenses that they incur, that's all in part of the deal and explained. And we'd like to make sure that you're never feeling on your own with this, because, you know, there's quite a lot of, it takes quite some months to go through from the point of our first call to actually being a donor. Can be 6 to 8 months at times, depending on how long it takes for you to work through the process and find a match. And in that long time, lots of things happen to people. They move, they change jobs, they change partners who have different opinions. And we've got to take all into consideration that these, you know, these donors are sometimes needing support, going through moments when they're having doubts and worries, and we need to be available to them. And, you know, wherever we can, we'll answer calls where, you know, as they come in. But, you know, most people understand that we work 2 hours and can't always get back straight away, but we try and get back as soon as we can, because it's really, for Altrui, although, you know, the recipient is very important, the donors to us are, you know, certainly to me, on the kind of work that I do, you know, they're my priority. And it's really important to make sure that they have a really good experience, really. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds so complex, and there's so many almost different hurdles to get over to get to that end point, isn't there? And
there are, but we've hoped to have broken it down so that it's not too complex. We want it to be a couple of phone calls and a bit of sharing of information in the meantime. That's what it breaks down to, really. But the sharing of information is also providing a really good buffer space, a time for you to be able to consider and think and breathe without feeling you've got the pressure of telling somebody over the phone whether you're really committed to this or not, and getting yourself in a pickle about it. You've got a chance to step back, think about it carefully. A lot of people step back for a year or more and, you know, we don't hear from them. And then suddenly they'll come back and say, actually, I can't shake this idea. I really want to go. So we try again. But there's never any pressure to continue at all. But I would hope that we try and give the slant to this, that it is such a positive thing to do on so many levels, especially now after COVID, that, you know, with help and support and, you know, just a little bit of good luck, so you can make a life-changing difference to somebody that will stay with you for the rest of your life and keep you warm in the, you know, in the direst, darkest of times that you might have in the future. You've done something amazingly special to help somebody, and that I think is something that is pretty important.
I can never think of anything really as life-changing as donating eggs or sperm and just enabling everything that I get to do now today as a mom and have been able to experience.
Well, it's like a major organ transplant in some ways. It revitalizes your outlook and your prospect of having the life that you'd wish to have. I mean, not only for you, but like we talk about the donors' families who are concerned and worried. And I often say to donors, don't forget that when you're offering this gift to somebody, it's not just to the recipient themselves, but their family who are desperate to become grandparents, whose maybe sister is guiltily having children and really struggling to share the joy of that because their sister can't conceive. And so by helping one person, you're actually giving a happy life to lots, you know, her surrounding family and friends as well. So yeah, there's a lot of facets to this that a lot of people, until you scratch the surface, you don't maybe consider just at first look at it.
Yeah, I think the ripple effect that goes out in terms of what you do to then make that difference to that family and that life is just, it's amazing. So thank you, Sarah, for walking us through that. And just to kind of come to a close, Jackie, I just wanted to ask you, if you were to be able to speak to your recipient now, what sort of things would you want to say, or what would you hope for them?
For me, especially now that I'm a mum myself and I am kind of hitting milestones with her, and every now and again I kind of think back to the recipient family, and I just hope that, you know, their child is as wonderful as mine. You know, there's like certain things that I think, you know, I hope that they're enjoying this as much as I am. And it didn't hit me until I become a mum. And that was one big change that going through the donation impacted on me. And this is something that I'd love for them to know, is the fact that pre-donation, Jackie, she didn't want children. You know, I didn't think that I wanted any children of my own, but going through the process and seeing the lengths that people went to in order to have kids, it impacted me how important family is, which then meant that I went on to have a family of my own. So I think it's that. I think it's just knowing how much it does change the donors, as well as it changes the recipient's life. And yeah, just to kind of say, you know, I just hope that they're happy.
Thank you. You're making me well up now. My final question was going to be, I suppose we've kind of spoken to recipients. What would you say to someone who is thinking about donating their eggs?
Definitely take your time. Like Altrui said to me at the time, if it's going to have any impact on you and your relationships and your family, your partner, it's not worth going through the donation, essentially. You know, just make sure that everything, you know, all T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Make sure that you're in a good place yourself to do it. and go for it. You know, if there's nothing else other than that stopping you, then kind of go for it. And you know, you will realize as soon as you kind of do that donation that you've done the right thing.
And I would say from a recipient perspective, what I've really liked to hear about tonight is how it isn't a rushed decision. It is considered, because I would like to think that the person who has donated eggs has really thought this through, and particularly in the UK where there is that opportunity for the child later on in life, I'd want them to know that that person who they potentially may meet in the future has thought it through and is open to that contact. And so that was really comforting, I think, to hear. But yeah, I just want to say a huge thank you to you and to Sarah just for talking through that process. I think it just gives people a little bit of an insight into the experiences of people who are donating their eggs and basically why they might want to do it. And I think sometimes it's a really comforting thing to hear, just to know the thought and care and consideration that takes place. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yes, thank you.